25 years ago.
Yeah, these are the Near boys from Mankato, Minnesota. They're going to give a little Mankato history. And we're here on the Kenai River in Alaska, on the Kenai Peninsula, and it's sometime late July 2010. We've lost the date because we've been at the cabin too long. But here you go. Here's the Near boys.
Well, this story goes back like in my early college days. I was taking a class at ornithology, studying birds, and so I picked a project to study crows.
At Mankato State.
At Mankato State.
No, it wasn't even Mankato. It was Mankato Teachers College.
Well, I think it was Mankato State at that time. But, so studying the crow, I ended up taking one of the young ones and brought it home as a pet. And it was sort of interesting. We had it out at our summer home at Lake Washington. But the crow would scare the neighbor's wife. And so to keep peace in the valley, we had to finally take the crow to the birdhouse out of Sibley Park.
Yeah, but there's more story about that, Jerome. We raised the crow there on Fair Street. You brought the crow home and we raised it in the basement, feeding it
Dog food.
Dog food.
Elpo.
And then the crow grew wings where it could fly, so we were scared to death to let it fly, but we took it out in the backyard, let it go, and it came back for more dog food.
Yeah, so that's...
And then every day we'd walk out in the backyard with a can of dog food, and the crow was sitting up on top of the TV antenna, and would come on down and we'd hold out our arm, and he'd land right there. Became a real pet early in the morning. You had a broom handle that you stuck out of our second-story window.
That's where he would roost at night to stay out of the weather.
Well, he'd sleep there, but every morning we'd hear this peck, 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 peck.
Time for breakfast.
And then I think Keith Apple, you and Keith were doing a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing things at that time. Keith Apple came up and started talking to the crow. And what did the crow start saying?
Well, he didn't know that the crow, his name, we called him Joe Crow, but Keith called him Bob. And he would offer, say, hello, Bob, and pretty soon the crow would pick up on that. And would say, hello, Bob.
And he had a way, it was, hello, Bob.
Yeah, he'd kind of
Hello, Bob.
pump up his chest a little bit and let it go. Well, the story then, we took it to Lake Washington, which was where our summer home was. And the crow, just about sunrise every morning, would be up in a big tree, and he would make all kinds of different noises. And finally, he just kind of bothered the neighbors. Especially, he scared the wife of one of the neighbors, because somehow she had a phobia about birds. And so, to keep peace in the valley, we took the bird back to town and took it out to Sibley Park and put it in with all the rest of the birds.
Yeah, but you're leaving out a big chunk of the story. When we took the bird back at the end of the summer, back to Mankato to live with us on the hill, the bird started becoming a pest because the mailman would come by and put mail in everybody's mailbox, and Joe was flying along right behind the mailman, and Joe would reach in the mailbox and grab the letters and fly away with them. I remember there were write-ups in the Mankato Free Press about that.
Well, it was kind of fun at the time we had it, but finally the bird just kind of left home. It ended up kind of downtown in Mankato and around the high school. And we just never had much to do with it after that. But I understand, though, that the bird was still around town. And years later, he resurfaced and would still answer with the hello, Bob.
Now, how did Sibley Park get into the mix on all this? Because I remember you took Joe out to Sibley Park.
Well, they had a big cage and they had all kinds of different birds in there. But I'd go out to visit the crow, and he would come up to the cage and kind of gurgle a little bit and kind of crow talk. don't know how we're doing on this.
Well, then Gargo just shared something with us that I didn't know, and that is that a few years later there was a big flood for Sibley Park, and they let all of the birds loose. And a couple years later, somebody else was sitting at their home, and here's this crow sitting up in a tree, and that person knew about Bob. He knew about Hello Bob, and he just thought he'd take a shot at it, and he said, "Hello Bob," and the crow answered back, "Hello Bob." That's what you heard, Carlo, right?
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. And I think every kid that grew up in Mankato would go down to the zoo, and they'd see that bird. And I remember myself, I'd say "Hello Bob," and it was just funnier than heck. And he'd answer you back, "Hello Bob."
Well, every kid ought to have a pet crow at least once, because they are quite smart, and they're a lot of fun, and that's just one of the great things of growing up.
But you know, the story goes on. It wasn't just a pet crow. Jerome was out hunting, and somehow an owl got hit, so all of a sudden we have a pet owl down in the basement, and we didn't know that owls don't, we put all the paper down below the owl. Then he comes home with a red-tailed hawk, and we're raising a red-tailed hawk at the same time we got the owl in the basement, and Joe's flying around outside. And we didn't know that the red-tailed hawk and the owl, they don't like to do their business right below them. They kind of raise their fanny and decide to play squirt gun against the basement walls.
Yeah, they can go 8 or 10 feet, though. That must be sort of a way to keep the nest clean.
But boy, and our poor mom, she's going down the basement. She's got a pet crow outside. She's got a pet owl down in the basement, a pet red-tailed hawk down in the basement, and all this squirting taking place. For the life of me, I don't know how that poor woman was able to tolerate it.
Okay, Greggy, that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the story of Hello Bob from
Time now for a commercial.
Sibley Park Zoo. And what year was that?
About 50...
54, 55.
54, 55.